Hello guys, it's Ryan Ho back with another video. Today we're talking about the Kiwi Ellipse. This is a 75, but it's actually on sale right now for $60 headphone that's supposed to be for studio use. It has a pretty nice tuning. The driver is pretty nice and it's really comfortable. And I would say the best part about it is it's a really well-built headphone. And we're going to compare this headphone to some other ones. So we have the Kiwi Ears Division. This one was $50, so a little cheaper. I think the $10 increase, this one is built a lot better. It's kind of basically like a Beyerdynamic headphone. So we have a Beyerdynamic Tygr 300r that we're going to compare it to because they both have that kind of, metal headband type of look. It's very similar, and they're both open back headphones too. And then we also have the FIO JT1. This is another $75, so close to the price point of this headphone. And this is also a really good one, so we'll see how that compares. And just to judge, how good is the Ellipse, who would buy it? Because this is, marketed for a studio use. I would say it is pretty studio oriented, except there's a little bit of region that could be, I guess the vocal part could be emphasized a little bit more. We'll talk about that. But yeah, so let's kind of dive into detail on this one, because honestly for 60 bucks, this is a pretty nice feeling headphone. And as always, if you guys are interested in picking this up, you guys can actually head to linsole.com to pick this one up. Like I said, I think it's on sale for like 60 bucks. All right, so when it comes to build quality of the Ellipse, the best part about this headphone, honestly, is it has this nice metal yoke. It's very strong, very sturdy. It has this reminiscent, like Beyerdynamic type of top. It's very kind of nice and plushy, has this kind of leather feeling to it. It's very soft, so I find it very comfortable, to be honest. And then we also have this nice, I think this is actually a metal grill right here on top. So it's an open back headphone, so it allows the air to kind of go out. And then, yeah, it protects it nicely. And then it has this little shiny little ring around it that gives it a little bit nice aesthetic, I think. And then, yeah, this cup right here is made of plastic. And then it goes to the actual kind of ear cup right here. So the interesting thing about this is these have these huge pads, right? Like if you look at these pads, they're really nice and they're really big. I find them, honestly, they should fit a lot of ears. I think the depth itself is not as deep as it is big, but I mean, for my ears, I don't really have a problem feeling the driver. And then right here, we can kind of look under it, right? So an interesting thing about these pads is they're kind of like on the outside of the cup. They're not really like set, like, there's no like lip or anything that it goes in, but it just sits on the outside. So you can kind of see the driver. It has the kind of foam covering. So for the, hardcore audiophiles who want to tune this, I'm sure if you take off this, you can get some more treble, because I do think this thing is a little bit restrained in what people call the upper mid-range, where a lot of like the female vocals are kind of in. They would sound a little bit more forward probably if you took this out. And then you can see the back of these pads right here. They're actually kind of perforated in there. So they did some type of tuning on that. And you can see that this actually does have some like pivot. And then it also has like swivel. And then, it's just pretty much can like conform to your head, to be honest. So you don't have any issue with kind of the fitment on this headphone. Now it also uses extensions, right? So the extensions are just kind of these long kind of, clasps that they pretty much all these headphones use. Like I said, the Beyerdynamic right here, pretty much exactly the same, right? One difference, I guess, between these two headphones is there's no cable running through this. Since this is like a single-ended, you can actually run this headphone balanced because it has a detachable cable. So I do like that design. That's actually better on this headphone. And to do that, I actually use this Deconi one. So because I like using balance for my amplifiers because they sound better for what I have. This Deconi cable is really cool because you can actually swap it with different heads and stuff like that. So you kind of twist this off and it kind of detaches. So then you can choose, like, if you have a Sennheiser headphone, you can kind of use that and then kind of attach a different one on here. So it's a really nice type of detachable system if you're looking for that from Deconi. Talk about sound. So, I mean, this is what it, first of all, looks like on your head. I mean, I think it looks pretty nice. I mean, it's a standard kind of metal headphone. It looks nice, feels nice. And then let's compare it to this Beyerdynamic right here. So what I noticed about this headphone is it's very balanced sounding. And, for the bass, it actually extends really deep into the sub bass. That's the thing that I think it actually beats the Beyerdynamic. It has better sub bass than the Beyer. And the bass itself is just a little bit emphasized. I wouldn't say it's like bloated or anything. It's just slightly emphasized in the mid bass. And overall, it has a really nice, honestly, bass that's very quick. and you can kind of hear it, you can feel it, and it goes deep. I actually prefer the bass of this one to the Beyer because it's a lot more even and the sub bass is actually better. And then the other part is the mid-range, right? So the mid-range on this headphone is basically tuned perfectly. You're gonna hear all your instruments. A lot of the body of your vocals are gonna sound really, really, really good on this headphone. A lot of the male vocalists, when they're singing, is also really good on this headphone. So I think that's the part where this headphone really, really does kind of really well in that instance. Now, I think the part, you know, the Tygr is pretty even, honestly, around that area as well. But when you get to the upper mid-range, that's where this headphone is kind of a little bit more reserved. So that's where a lot of like your female vocals, you want your vocals kind of pop out and come out at you a little bit more. And that's where it's a little bit more reserved, a little bit more relaxed in that region. So your vocals won't pop as much and won't be kind of in your face, I guess, as much. Kind of gives it a little bit more of a warm character because of that. And I think that's definitely noticeable when I'm listening to it as well. Well, actually, I noticed that like when you get to the higher trebles, like the 8K and higher, I feel like this honestly finishes notes really well. I didn't really hear like that much harshness to it. I think on some graph it does look really big, but honestly when I'm actually listening to it, it doesn't really sound that harsh to me. So I think the treble is actually done pretty well. It's pretty extended and I feel like it's honestly pretty clean up there. Versus I feel like the Beyer, I feel like it does do the upper mid-range a lot better. So if you listen to a lot of female vocals, I do feel like the Beyerdynamic does kind of do that better. The vocals just come across a little bit more forward, a little bit more natural. But I mean, the actual 8K and higher, the upper treble is where, you know, the Beyerdynamic really always gets in trouble. It's like too bright. It's a little bit painful, very like sibilancy, I guess, on the Beyerdynamic. But overall, I would say, you know, it has some good and it has some bad. And then the Ellipse also is better in some areas and not. But of course, this is a $180 headphone and this is like a $75 or a $60 headphone. So it is a lot cheaper than it. And I feel like that's the part we would take away is that like for a headphone that is a lot cheaper than it, it does actually take some things away from this one. Build quality wise, they're very similar. In fact, you actually get leather cups if you like that premium feel. It actually feels nicer too because of that versus this has, you know, velour, which, you know, they're less, I guess, hot for your ears, but they're not as like premium, I guess, feeling as well. So it just really depends on you. The other things I want to talk about is like detail and like resolution, right? So that's where it's interesting because like, you know, compared to like a headphone like this is a $75 headphone. I feel like the resolution in both of these headphones are pretty close to what you expect for about $100 range. So I feel like they resolve very nicely and they have like good detail. But, you know, like in comparison to the, I guess the Division that I reviewed like 2 weeks ago, I think the Division honestly sounds more closer to like, you know, a $50 headphone where it's kind of priced accurately, while this one definitely results better than I think even the Division. I feel like the Division itself has, you know, a lot of bass and a lot of sub bass and elevated bass, which is good. The male vocalists don't sound as good on this one as it does on the Ellipse. And then the female vocalists do sound a little bit more forward on the Division. So I feel like it does kind of take in that part, but I feel like the overall resolution and the detail of this driver is a lot cleaner sounding than the Division. So I would pick this one honestly over the Division if it was up to me. And then, you know, the other thing is, I guess the overall resolution of this headphone in comparison to like the Beyerdynamic, right? So the Beyerdynamic, I think, does, you know, have better detail, out-resolve it. But of course, it is a more expensive headphone, like, you know, 2 times more expensive. So I would say, yeah, I would say the resolution of this is closer to the $100 mark, right? Now, the other thing that I want to talk about is kind of soundstage and like imaging. So I would say this headphone actually is probably not a true open back. I would say it's probably more like a semi-open back. What I do is, you know, if you put it on your head and then you cup it and you listen to music, the sound doesn't change too much as my hand is kind of blocking the air. So that's kind of how I kind of determine that it's probably more like a semi-open back, and that's probably how they're able to achieve probably better bass response than other headphones, to be honest. So I think that portion of it is good, but that does mean that I guess your soundstage on this is pretty tall. These use 50mm drivers, so they're really big drivers. So I found that overall the sound was very tall, but kind of closer to my head. And the soundstage went out further than a closed back headphone, but I would say it's not like as open as like the most open headphones out there. But overall, I would say the soundstage is quite tall. And I mean, medium wide, I guess you would say. Then the other thing about this headphone is the imaging, right? So when you play games, you know, you want to find your targets. How well can you kind of locate your targets, right? And I would say the imaging on this is actually really, really good. I think out of a scale of 10, I would probably give it, I rank it probably an 8 out of 10, I think. I think it's pretty good. So this thing doesn't really have angled drivers, so I would knock it down because it doesn't have angled drivers, but it honestly performs really well. For example, if you're playing like a game like Valorant or something and your enemies are coming, right? And if you kind of hear them coming from your left and they're in front of you, I would say when I listen to headphone, they just sound just slightly off center, so not exactly in the middle when I hear them coming around. So I feel like it's the imaging of this is like pretty good, but not like dead on, but it's like almost dead on. So I had no issues with it, and telling how, you know, close and far things are wasn't that hard either. I think the tuning itself is really good for gaming. There's enough bass to like hear everything, but not like an overwhelming bass. So I really feel like if you want that kind of gaming quality, this is actually a pretty good option. And, you know, for like gamers who don't want to spend a lot of money, like $60, I mean, that's pretty much a pretty good price for a lot of people. Obviously, you're going to need a microphone with this one. Yeah, so then that kind of leads us to the conclusion. Honestly, if you're looking for, I guess, a nice, I guess, neutral headphone, a little bit warm type of headphone, I feel like the Ellipse is a pretty good option. If you want a little bit more vocal forwardness, I would say the JT1 does have a little bit more kind of forward in the vocals, if you like that for like female vocals. So, you know, different options for, you know, different people. But I would say, honestly, it's a pretty good product. I think the build quality itself is my favorite part about the headphone. The actual sound, the resolution, the bass is also, I think, an outstanding part. I compare this actually to not only this one, but my Sennheiser HD58X. And the sub bass on this one is also better than that one. And the treble is actually better than my Sennheiser. So I feel like in the deep sub bass, in the highest treble region, it actually is better. But then I felt like my Sennheiser was a little bit better in like the vocal, like upper mid range, like I said. So I think it's a pretty good headphone for the price. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe down below. Helps my videos out. You guys can pick this up at Linsel if you are interested. Anyways, I'll see you guys in the next video.